I was posted as managing director of the Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation, and I realized that growth is critical. For me, the critical issue then became that how does Kerala grow rapidly? Because Kerala was a failed industrial state at that point of time. One fine day, I got a call that the Prime Minister wants to visit Kerala, and I hosted Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee there. He came and stayed in Kovalam. Principal Secretary of the Prime Minister said that I should be called to Government of India.
You recently led a very successful G20 for India. In that process, what were you trying to achieve and how did you feel after that process was over?
So G20 was about bringing consensus on a range of issues, every single issue confronting the world. Consensus was very difficult at that point of time because of the Russia-Ukraine crisis, because there are differing perception on SDGs, on digital public infrastructure, climate action, climate finance. So throughout the year we struggled, we failed many times, the ministerial meetings failed. But towards the end, in the last 15 days, the Sherpa meeting, we were able to get a consensus on all critical issues confronting the world. And wherever United Nations had failed, Security Council had failed, the G20 under India's leadership was able to bring consensus on all critical issues, including women-led development, green pact for future growth, as well as sustainable development goals and digital public infrastructure.
Where do you think we have succeeded and where do you think we can still do more and what can we do?
So first is several things need to be done. One is that we need to again go through this process of ease of doing business and make India very easy and simple. Secondly, we need to do away with over-regulation by many of our regulators. That's important. Thirdly, to my mind, we need to really get the size and scale of manufacturing right. We need 10,000 large companies, and we need to then push for exports. Manufacturing will not happen without exports. Our exports are too low. My belief is that government has to act as a facilitator, act as a catalyst, but eventually it's the private sector which has to grow and progress.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us for another episode of Growth is Good. I'm very pleased to have with us somebody I've worked with before, Mr. Amitabh Kant. He's been an administrator in the Indian services for a long time, capped off remarkably as his stint with the CEO of NITI Aayog and as the G20 Sherpa for India. He's someone who's seen policy making from the inside out at the highest levels and at the lowest levels. So we're very pleased to be able to speak with him today. Thank you for making time for us, sir. So, sir, the way we start this is just to ask people, how did you personally recognize this thing called economic growth? What was your personal connection with it? Sir, I mean, so in your career, you saw both sides of 1991. You were a young person. How did you recognize and realize that economic growth is important? Because very early on, you made several steps to boost growth in the state that you were working in, and you were a pioneer in some of these steps. So how did you come to this realization that it's important that you should do something about it?
So actually, I was posted fairly early in my career. I worked a lot with traditional fishermen,
Right.
Where my job was to enhance their productivity, improve their livelihood, etc. So I got them new technology, outboard motors. Then I got them to go for new fishing nets, which were then known as disco nets. And also,
they're all over Kerala now. They're all over Kerala.
Yeah, and also introduced buses for fisherwomen,
Right.
new crafts for them, fiberglass crafts, etc. And then we opened their bank accounts because fishermen were prone to drinking. So it was I realized that time that transforming lives of human beings were important, and self-help groups, and I was able to work in that area for 4 years. But right after that, I was posted as managing director of the Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation, and I realized that growth is critical. You can have very high physical quality of life index. You can have very good learning outcomes, health outcomes, nutritional standards. But if the economy doesn't grow, the per capita income doesn't grow. And for me, the critical issue then became that how does Kerala grow rapidly? Because Kerala was a failed industrial state at that point of time because of unions and the experience of industrialists to the very extreme form of unionization. And at that point of time, I started supporting the tourism sector. And my view was that it was not entrepreneurship which was lacking. It was our ability to push for free enterprise in the tourism sector. That's what I did. And I financed many of the tourism ventures at that point. But I also pushed for last mile connectivity, which is, to my mind, is state's job. Right. For me, growth, progress, development, free enterprise in a private sector growing became very critical during my job as KSIDC, the Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation. And soon after, I was posted as the Secretary Tourism in Kerala sector, where I pushed for this God's Own Country initiative, but I worked for private-public partnership, and I worked for driving the tourism sector of India, not through government, which had all other states were doing. But I said, if Kerala has to sustain itself in the long term, grow into a major tourism destination, it has to be a private sector initiative. Right. So we got private sector to grow and expand, but we provided the last mile connectivity to backwaters. We opened up the backwaters to private enterprise in terms of houseboats. We opened up, the houseboats, which where not a single nail is used. Carpenters had gone away. We got them back. And we supported and financed the private sector enterprise, and they did remarkably well. So my belief is that government has to act as a facilitator, act as a catalyst, but eventually it's the private sector which has to grow and progress.
So that's fascinating. And at that time, and especially given the context, you were in Kerala, you were part of the services, this must have been an unusual view, right? Like, I think, how did you come about it? How did you start thinking these things? Because at the time, license Raj and the commanding heights of the state and all of these things were there. And your view is, I mean, it perfectly aligns with how I think the world should work, but it's very rare in the context that you existed. How did you develop it?
So fairly early in the day, I was able to work with the private sector in Kerala, and I saw how they suffered because of excessive degree of rules, regulation, procedures, paperwork. I also saw that if you unshackle them in the tourism sector, they grow and blossom. I also realized that it's important that the government actually can play a very critical role in what it is supposed to do, which is actually ensuring that learning outcomes improve, health outcomes improve, nutritional standards improve. But don't get into the task of actually running a business. That's for the private sector. And I've always been a believer that free enterprise requires a change of mindset in civil servants, because civil servants very early in their career start working in the subdivision, they work on anti-poverty programs, they work on rural development, and then they get obsessed with the developmental aspects of putting controls, but not realizing that in the business is the private sector which has to grow and blossom.
Right. So I wish we could put you in charge of Lavasna.
No. So, much later when I came to Government of India, I pursued the same philosophy, whether I was in Commerce Ministry or whether I was in tourism sector where I did the Incredible India. I always involved the private sector. And I've also believed that the government needs to work with some of the best people. And wherever I've worked with the private sector, I've tried to work with the best and the most creative people.
Right. And so you already made a couple of references to it, but do tell us the story of God's Own Country and Incredible India, because those were amazing moments in the tourism sector for India. And you drove it. So how did all of that happen? And in that process, what did you learn about what's holding back Indian tourism? Because it's an area where we underperform our potential massively. So tell us a little bit about that.
So, I landed up in Kerala tourism sector as a punishment posting. I was without a posting for 10 months. I'd run foul of the communist government. And then nobody wanted to go to the tourism sector because nobody had heard of Kerala as a tourism sector. People used to go to Rajasthan or Kashmir or
Golden Quadrilateral.
Yeah, so nobody had heard of the many hidden products of Kerala. So after 10 months when I was posted as a punishment posting, I took it upon myself to open up new products. There was only Kovalam Beach on which low-value charters used to come. So you had very, very low-value $20, $25 a night kind of products. And my aim was to make Kerala a high-value destination. So I closed Kovalam, cleaned it up in terms of removing all encroachments, etc., etc. But I opened up the backwaters and I took Kerala back to its roots. I went back to its traditional culture. I opened up all these art forms,
right.
Tayyam, Kathakali, Mohiniyattam. I opened up the traditional Kerala cuisine, which is appam and stew, which
right.
not many people had heard of at that time. And I opened up the backwaters. I opened up the houseboats. I opened up Ayurveda as not as a massage, but as a regimen. And I opened up, Kalripet, which is the martial art forms of Kerala. Now, when you combine all this, you realize that Kerala is the only place which has beaches, backwater, and wildlife all within a radius of 3 hours to each other. So we worked with the private sector to create the packages, and some of the poachers we converted into guides and put money into their bank account for the next 5 years. And these poachers became the best guides for wildlife destinations.
Right.
And that's how Kerala grew. But it's a product of great private sector enterprise. It's a product of some phenomenal products created by the private sector. And I want to give them credit for that. We in government actually did the last mile bit, and we promoted and marketed Kerala as God's own country.
Right.
We worked with the best people for promotion and marketing. But the actual experience, and tourism is all about creating experiences, that was all created by the private sector.
Right. And that's a fantastic story. I didn't know this part about it being a punishment posting and how you converted something that should have been a setback into a remarkable triumph, right? And I think it sets a paradigm for people even in their personal life. I think it's not just about policy. So thank you for sharing that. And you later almost replicated some of this in the Incredible India story. But India is still way below potential, right? Like, I think we get only 1.8% of global tourist arrivals in India. And that's for a variety of reasons. What is your sense of what's holding us back and what can improve things?
So, when I was there, one fine day I got a call that the Prime Minister wants to visit Kerala, and I hosted Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee there. He came and stayed in Kovalam. And one day, the Principal Secretary of the Prime Minister said that I should be called to Government of India to work on tourism. So much later, when I applied to Government of India, I was to go to another ministry, but the PMO posted me to Ministry of Tourism. And that's how I ended up working in the tourism sector. But, as soon as I landed, 26/11 happened. There was an advisory against India. There was war in Afghanistan. There was, attack on our parliament. Many things had happened.
Right.
But at the peak of that crisis, we launched the Incredible India campaign when Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore had all stopped their campaign.
Right.
And it was a marketing-led strategy which led to the revival of Indian tourism products. So I'm a great believer that we need to do some really good marketing right now across the world to drive India's tourism.
Yeah.
And we haven't done good brand marketing of India for the last 4 to 5 years. We also need to work with the states to create great experiences from the point of arrival to the point of departure.
Right.
We now have good airports, we have good airlines, but we need to really push for some of the new products that have been created and market them internationally. Because what India can offer, no other destination does that in terms of heritage, in terms of culture, in terms of wildlife.
Yeah.
And our resorts are really top class. We have some of the best hotels in the world. So we need some very huge marketing right now. And I'm saying this because, we get about 10 million, out of which only 3 million are genuine tourists. Rest are all from neighborhood.
Nice.
But we are sending out 20 million tourists, or more probably. And we are going to get about 1,500 aircrafts. Now, these aircrafts, which are being bought by Tatas or Indigos, Air India, etc., they should not become a mean for promoting outbound tourism. We should be pushing for inbound tourism. And there is no tariff on tourism. So this is a huge opportunity for India to really drive tourism in a very big way.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this idea about states and working with them to create experiences. And this is, in Kerala, you did this destination management, you just referred to it. And that's a big key to fixing the issue. So I think completely aligned. We'll switch to another area of growth, which again, you have been very intimately involved with, and you mentioned tariffs also. So it's relatively more linked, is manufacturing. Right? And there, again, you were part of this exercise of improving ease of doing business when you were at DPIIT. You kicked off the Business Readiness Action Plan. You kicked off a lot of these initiatives. What is when you sit back and take stock of all of this, where do you think we have succeeded and where do you think we can still do more, and what can we do?
So first is several things need to be done. One is that we need to again go through this process of ease of doing business and make India very easy and simple.
Yeah.
Secondly, we need to do away with an over-regulation by many of our regulators. That's important. Thirdly, to my mind, we need to really get the size and scale of manufacturing right. We need 10,000 large companies, and we need to then push for exports. Manufacturing will not happen without exports. Our exports are too low, and we need to penetrate global markets. All countries which have grown, Japan, China, Korea, they all grew on the back of exports. Yeah. So you need to penetrate global markets. That would require a lot of resources into R&D. We need to become a far more innovative nation, and we need to become highly competitive to get the size and scale to penetrate global markets. All this is very critical. So ease of doing business, pushing for size and scale, becoming more and more competitive, enhancing productivity, and pushing for greater innovation and research.
Right. I think these are a set of prescriptions that nobody can disagree with. With all your experience in government and sort of what makes things happen and what make things move, you were one of the first people to switch to this attitude of publicize things and get states to compete, for instance, right? And I think that moved many needles in governance, where people would think that you can't really actually get things to change. So you demonstrated that one pathway. Are there other pathways that you think are similarly underexplored for this kind of thing, for ease of doing business, for pushing for scale and size? How can we actually get some of these things to be felt on the ground?
So one is, to my mind, we need to de novo examine, because we had moved from British Raj to License Raj. Right. We need to de novo examine why there are certain rules and regulations existing. For instance, even if you were to start business today in India, it takes you about 7 months. Yeah. Why should it take that long? In Singapore, in New Zealand, it's 1 day of digital work that you get cracking. And so I think every single ministry should be asked to just eliminate rules and regulations. And every single ministry should ensure that no form is more than a couple of columns. No rules are more than 2 pages. No act is more than 3 pages. And just make things simpler. A country will grow and blossom. And also get that spirit of free enterprise that it's only with private sector India will grow and prosper.
Such music to my ears, sir. I think I wish someone would put you in charge of all of this, honestly. And sir, this last thing you said about this understanding the spirit or mindset of free enterprise. That's something that several people I speak to, Gurcharan Das, for instance, often says this, right? That we've never had reforms sold to India, right? Like, I think this mindset change that free enterprise is what's important, that the private sector should blossom, that the government should function as an enabler, something which you understand very intuitively, but many people don't understand or have not had it sold to them. What more could we do? You are the master of branding and telling ideas. What more could we do on this front? Should we be doing more? Who should be doing more? What is your
No, because every single civil servant, it's not just the senior officers, every junior officer will also has a similar mindset of government controlling.
Yes.
They don't know the implications of how it has long-lasting impact.
Yes.
And therefore, you need to recondition the mindset of these civil servants to be agents of allowing free enterprise to grow. And that would require a huge effort in terms of changing mindset across states. So growth will not come from central government alone. Central government has done a lot in terms of scrapping laws. But every single state has to do this. I'm a strong believer also in naming and shaming states. So to rank them, to push that performance, outcome-based performance in public domain. Everybody should know who's performing, who's non-performing. And that'll help us in the long run, naming and shaming.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely you were a pioneer of that approach. The aspiring districts program, a lot of these things that you did were very effective. But on this mindset change, if you let me sort of ask you again, as somebody who's spent their entire career in civil service, who understands that space so well, what are effective ways to drive this? Is it senior civil servants like yourself talking to more people? Is it that we need a broader cultural movement around it? How do civil servants imbibe ideas, and how can we change minds?
You need both a cultural movement, but you need a drive to de novo think of why certain things exist.
Right.
And they need to be told that why should a new startup take 7 months to get clearance? So it should be done in 24 hours.
Absolutely.
The outcome of 24 hours must be given to them, that we need clearance in 24 hours.
Absolutely.
And that should all be a process of digitization.
Absolutely. And so again, I think I'll just switch tracks briefly. You recently led a very successful G20 for India. In that process, what were you trying to achieve, and how did you feel after that process was over, and how do you feel about what happened? Again, I think from the outside, it seemed like a massively successful endeavor, but I want to understand your experience of it.
So G20 was about bringing consensus on a range of issues, every single issue confronting the world. Now, consensus was very difficult at that point of time because of the Russia-Ukraine crisis, because there are differing perception on SDGs, on digital public infrastructure, on climate action, climate finance. So throughout the year, we struggled, we failed many times, the ministerial meetings failed. But towards the end, in the last 15 days, the Sherpa meeting, we were able to get a consensus on all critical issues confronting the world. And wherever United Nations had failed, Security Council had failed, the G20 under India's leadership was able to bring consensus on all critical issues, including women-led development, green pact for future growth, as well as sustainable development goals and digital public infrastructure. So that was, to my mind, during India's presidency, we got consensus on around close to about 100 odd outcomes. This had never before happened in G20. The only other thing which was very critical for us was to make African Union a member of G20. And therefore, India succeeded in making G20 as G21. And we did G20 very differently. Normally, it's held in one city or two cities.
Right.
We held it in over about 100 cities, the G20, and we did it in participation with the state government. So it went off very, very successfully.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Arunachal Pradesh in that process, and I saw the preparations were on even there for your G20 event. So it was actually remarkable. Very interesting thing to see. So as we stand, there's a lot of uncertainty in the global space because of President Trump and the tariffs that he's placing. In some ways, this is an uncertain and dangerous moment for the country, but in some ways, it's also an opportunity. And you've mentioned this before. So could you just talk about sort of how India should look to navigate this time, and what are the potential opportunities that stand waiting for us?
So I think this is a huge opportunity. My view is that this global flux, this lack of unpredictability and inconsistency, high tariff rates on other countries is a huge opportunity as long as we are able to tap into it. And this would mean, again, that we become very easy and simple. We become the easiest country in the world to do business in. Secondly, we need to bring down tariffs on inputs and components which come into India, because you are an integral part of the global supply chain. Unless you don't reduce duties on them, you'll never be able to compete.
Absolutely.
And the other is, of course, to get into bilateral trade agreements, which are a win-win for India.
Absolutely.
So these are opportunities. They are not it's not a crisis. They work to India's advantage as long as we can take advantage of them.
Right. This is, I think it's a personal mantra for you, sir, that any setback or any crisis is a time of opportunity. It's like, just like your punishment posting in Kerala. So I think what you said is fantastic. Again, this idea that this is a massive opportunity, we can take the right steps. And you highlighted exactly, I think, in my mind as well, it's so important that these quality control orders, especially for raw materials and inputs, should be taken away so that Indian manufacturers can be competitive. So one thing, a potential compromise solution, if you will, I wonder if, just wanted your thoughts on it, is at least for the export supply chain, can we do away with the requirement of quality control orders and tariffs?
Absolutely. They should be at zero rates and there should be no quality control orders on them.
Right.
We should ensure that otherwise you'll never be globally competitive.
Exactly.
See, even on PLI schemes, where there are PLI schemes, we've put high level of quality control orders on inputs. We put very high level of tariffs. So how will you be competitive? One side you're giving incentives, the other side you're putting these duties on inputs and components. How will you be globally competitive? It's not possible.
Absolutely. And without being globally competitive, as you mentioned, there's no scale in India.
Right? So you need to get the size and scale of manufacturing.
Right.
You are killing Indian industries, you're killing MSMEs by doing this.
Right.
So that clarity of mind has to come in.
Absolutely. So I think, again, fantastic views from you, sir, on everything. As usual, I couldn't agree with you more. Are there other things that you think are important for India as we stand in this moment going forward? What are things that are on your mind that you would want to sort of share with people?
Well, I think this is India's moment. India must seize it. And one big opportunity to my mind is that India must be able to attract the best Indian talent from across the world, because in the United States, you have a situation where universities' budgets are being cut. So while a lot of top-class professors, etc., are working in American universities, we should be able to attract them to do 6 months or 7 months of additional work in India or sabbatical, and they should open up labs and work on AI, quantum computing, biosimilars. These are cutting-edge areas where we should be able to attract a lot of researchers. We should be able to attract a lot of top-class talent from across the world to make India a very innovative society.
Absolutely. So, ease of doing business, deregulation, size and scale, innovation. And that's
And deep tech.
Deep tech, exactly. Innovation.
Deep tech is critical, because if India is to technologically leapfrog, without deep tech, it will not happen.
Right. Sir, I think that's a fantastic set of ideas and prescriptions. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. A real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. My pleasure.